So by now you've probably heard of the new smash hit game, Fall Guys. And if you haven't, it is a super addictive sort of Mario Party style game where you start with about 60 competitors and eventually you get down to just one. And I really wanted to find out today if you could run this game on the minimum system requirements that are recommended by the developer. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. So the minimum specs for Fall Guys, it's actually a really easy game to run by modern PC gaming hardware. They recommend, the developer that is, recommends an i5 processor or AMD equivalent, and they don't really tell us what generation i5 processor we should be shooting for. Now, I'm assuming they mean an older generation i5, so I'm going with the 4-core and 4-thread variants of days gone by, and not so much the modern i5 equivalents that have more cores, more threads, and just generally are much better processors, especially when you consider something like an i5-10400 that's featuring 6 cores and 12 threads. That's probably going to be overkill for Fall Guys, so I'm sticking with the i5-4590 just because I have one of those on hand. It's actually that white Dell Optiplex that I took a look at a while back. It's just easy for me to test that out, and I feel like it's older hardware. It is an i5 processor, so we should be good to go on that front. Now, it's recommended to run at least 8 GB of system RAM, and we do have 8 GB of DDR3 memory running at 1600 MHz. And then for the GPU, I thought it was an interesting recommendation of a GTX 660 or better. Now, on the AMD side, I believe it was a 7950 was the recommended GPU, but I'm going to be sticking with the 660 because, again, I happen to have a GTX 660 on hand. In fact, my GTX 660 was literally the first graphics card I ever owned. I bought it back in 2013, early 2013, something like $200 or $220. So yeah, I'm going to go with the 660 here. Now, I was running the game off of an SSD, not a hard drive, just in case you're interested in that sort of thing. But as you can see from some of the gameplay, before we even look at benchmarks, yeah, the game actually plays quite well at 1080p. These are on the high preset here, some of these game capture moments. And yeah, the game plays super well. What you'll also notice though is the FPS, the frames per second, never really jumps above 60. And I think that's because the game caps out at 60 regardless of what you set your monitor as. For example, I had mine set at 1920 by 1080, 144 Hertz, but it looks like, at least right now, the game's capped at 60 Hertz, and no, VSync was not on. So just knowing that 60 FPS is kind of the cap for this game, we pretty much have it locked in here to 59 or 60 FPS. So the 660, even before we look at the benchmarks, is looking good. Now with the GTX 660 in the system, again running an i5-4590 with 8 gigs of system memory on the high preset at 1080p, yeah, the preview that we saw with the gameplay footage was basically right on. This game performs really, really well. We saw an average FPS here of 59, 1% low there of 55, and a 0.1% low there of 49, telling us that we have really good frame time consistency because this is not varying a whole lot. So the GTX 660 in this particular instance is a really good GPU to actually run this game, and actually does quite well here. And since we know the 660 runs this game just fine, I thought it would be fun to also take a look at how the i5-4590 does, but with the built-in graphics, just to see if it's actually possible to run this game without any GPU whatsoever on an older generation i5 processor. So let's take a look at that. Now, I did briefly try to run the integrated Intel HD 4600 graphics on 1080p settings, but that was just too much for this particular title with the integrated GPU on the 4590. So instead, we started out with 720p at the high preset, and we had an average frame rate there of 23, a 1% low of 20, and a 0.1% low of 19. So again, we're seeing really good frame time consistency. The problem here is it's just below what I would call playable. Now, you could actually play this and not get completely wrecked by the competition just because of the nature of the game itself, but I definitely wouldn't call this a good experience. But if you're willing to drop down to the low preset at 720p on these integrated graphics for the 4590, then you actually do see very playable frame rates, seeing an average FPS there of 42, 1% low of 31, and a 0.1% low of 24. So this was absolutely a playable experience, and you could definitely win some games playing on these settings. Now, it's not going to look like a really awesome AAA title or anything, especially running on the low preset at 720p, but if this is all you're working with and you really just want to get up and running playing this game because you think it's so cool and you just want to get your hands on it, then yeah, you could actually run this game at 720p low preset on the integrated graphics on a 4590 and actually still have a really good time playing. So in summary, if you have not played Fall Guys yet, I believe right now it is $20 on Steam, but totally worth taking a look at, especially as just a game to burn 20 minutes or so at a time. It is awesome. It's actually really, really fun, and I hope that they add more mini games to the game itself down the road as well. Hopefully it's not DLC. Hopefully that's just updated with the game over the course of its lifespan, but it is a very fun game to play. I highly recommend taking a look at it. I'll try to remember to actually link it down below. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that, just linking Fall Guys there just because it's a good game and you should check it out absolutely. The GTX 660, the recommended system specs run the game absolutely fine. So the developer is definitely erring on the side of caution here by giving you a spec sheet that actually runs the game just fine. You could definitely get away with running this game probably on an i3, possibly even a Pentium processor, as well as a weaker GPU, and still probably be just fine. The CPU wasn't being completely capped out, and the GPU was handling the game just fine at playable frame rates. Even on the integrated graphics on the 4590, it actually was still a playable experience if you're willing to drop down to 720p and willing to drop the preset down to the low preset as well. So you definitely have some room there. Even if you're rocking the bare minimum system specs recommended by the developer, you should be in good shape for this title. But that's basically it. Let me know what you guys think of Fall Guys. If you've played it, is it a game that you're getting addicted to, or is it a game that you're not addicted to at all and you actually think it's kind of dumb? Let me know all your thoughts in those comments down below. And of course, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, give this video a like, share, subscribe, comment. All those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.